From the land of sky blue waters, welcome to the Sota Pod. Isha Hoppy here alongside the state of Hoppy. And thank you for joining us wherever and whenever you are listening. Look, we're not only, well, I am not only alongside just the state of Hoppy. We got Dillon Pomeroy back on the show here. Dillon, how's it going, my man? Thank you so much for your time again, brother.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for having me back. I appreciate you boys and really looking forward to catching up, man. It's been a good time hanging with you guys.
So before Hoppy roasts me for going like, what the fuck kind of introduction was that? What's your official title with the RØKKR group again?
Yeah, it's all good. I'm a partnership.
Could you just introduce yourself, please, so that Isha doesn't have to do anything?
Dude, I loved it.
I didn't want to mess it up because I saw like two different ones, and I was like, you know what? To avoid Hoppy making fun of me for saying the wrong one, I want to hear it from your mouth again.
This is going way better. Yeah.
No, I love it. All good. I am partnerships manager at version 1 and Minnesota RØKKR. You said my name correctly, which is all that matters. So I'm good with any other thing you want to call me. Trust me.
I was gonna say general manager, but I was like, I don't know if that's like too hockey term or not. So
yeah, no, not a general manager. That is an entirely different role.
So there you go. For those of you who have not seen our first interview, bits and pieces of it, and or the entire podcast version, again, subscribe to our YouTube channels. We always post clips of our interviews. There'll be more clips of this one and our past one as well, and go check out the last podcast episode. Link in the description of this podcast and YouTube video. But Dillon, wanted to first of all say thank you very much for inviting Hoppy and I to your guys' last event. I mean, Hoppy, do you have any questions for Dillon right off the hop on that event before like I just start swooning about how much fun it was?
Wow, I mean, his first question of the whole interview is for me.
Yeah, I love it.
Me if I have a question. This is big. No, I mean, Dillon, why don't you just lead off explaining to everybody the home series and what it was that we got to come out and enjoy with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciated, you guys coming out. It was a really awesome time, I think, overall, and I had a blast hanging with you guys when I could. But yeah, you guys were able to come to our RØKKR home series, which was a Call of Duty League live event. The reason I emphasize live is that it's super uncommon to have any sort of in-person type of event or match or competition that isn't a major. So it was super fun to have you guys, and you got to experience our first match of the day against London, and then our final match of the day against Breach, which was, both pretty exciting. We went 1-1 on the day. Really fun overall. And like I said, it was just awesome to show you guys a bit of it. And honestly, I always love just sharing the energy of live esports with people, because it's it's a little like hockey. It's pretty palpable. There's a vibe in the air, and I think you guys got to really experience it. So I appreciated you guys coming out. That was awesome.
Did we ever? Holy shit. And so I mean, you said it there, right? Like it's not normal. This isn't like a typical thing within the space unless it's a major. Like what did it take for you guys to be able to host this kind of event then?
Yeah, awesome question. Fair question too. It was quite a plan that our COO Brett had been really behind, really fighting for, of this like one day type of opportunity. That the way I never heard him compare it like this, so a lot of these are my own words, but just kind of associating it like a double header in baseball where there's like a rain delay or something you're making up. So you get to watch your favorite team play twice. You attend the event similar to a sporting event rather than like taking travel out to go to a major, which is really fun and a really exciting experience. I won't deny that at all, but to be able to go and just support your favorite team, in this case, your Minnesota RØKKR, your Call of Duty League team here, was just really, really an important thing we wanted to give fans, and is something that our org in general has always pushed. Live event aspect, in-person aspect, camaraderie, the team in the North, just being really proud of that. And getting all our fans together is something we definitely don't take lightly, and we're really pumped that everybody showed out. It was really cool to see.
The emphasis on everybody. Like I like, obviously I know that your brand is popular, version 1, and just like the team. I assume that Call of Duty is the most popular following that you have probably out of the teams. But I didn't realize that what seemingly every single Minnesota fan who was free that day was able to come in and check it out. The place was packed, a good showing. And I've been to LAN tournaments before, which, rows and rows of computers. And yeah, there's like a stage with like usually some entertainment, like the end of the day or whatever. But it's usually just like it's almost like a hockey expo, for bringing it to like hockey comparison here for the sake of the podcast. And that's kind of what my expectation was coming into this. I didn't realize it was more like a mini major in the vibe anyways. And that's what it kind of reminded me of. Because for those who don't know, like, you know, the big major events at the big stadiums, like, you know, you can buy beers and things like that, which, by the way, shout out to, what was his name, Hoppy? Our bartender there, who was just like, who was icing on the cake at the event there. Unbelievable service from, again, Dillon and the whole RØKKR team, but also from those working that event too, because it just made for such a great time.
That's what it's all about. I mean, you nailed it. It's hard to encapsulate something that, you know, esports came from that con side, and that came from like the convention vibe, the expo vibe, conference rooms, you know, to put it into a show and an experience is something that, you know, Katie and CV on our events team, Shannon, the production side, Bree and all the design work. I mean, like, every little thing is thought of, you know, Ali, Ange, Al, the marketing team, everybody involved, and especially our partnerships crew, like Blaze, Jenna, Alex, like, everybody you guys kind of brush shoulders with. Like, you'll notice that our entire staff was there. We love that aspect of it. And honestly, like I've joked about before, it makes what we do like worth it, because then we're not behind a desk like everyone else, you know, doing some fun stuff that we like to do. So I appreciate you guys saying the kind words about it. That's again, the whole point. But we want that party atmosphere. We want that vibe. We want that energy, because it makes it way more fun more fun in person.
Dude, the atmosphere is what did it for me. But I gotta say, like, admittedly, I'm walking the row of people for the line that's like waiting outside of Palace Theater, and I'm like eyeing up the crew, and I'm just like, yep, this is checking the box. You guys seem like you'd be into video games, you know, everyone's in the stereotype. And in my head, I'm just like, like, I don't know what to expect from this, but also we got a bunch of, you know, people that are super into video games. Let's go with stereotypes here, right? Probably a little bit more introverted, quiet, and they're just like there to take in like this team that they love so much. Dude, it was
more wrong.
Absolutely electric. Oh my God. Like, and it helps having a smaller, like, more intimate environment like Palace Theater for sure. But I'm telling you, man, obviously everything you guys were doing, from the production on stage to what we had up on screen, like, that was all awesome. And that's like huge for getting the people going. But I'm telling you, I don't know that I've seen many hockey games where the fans were as lit up as the people that were down in the pit, just going fucking ape shit whenever something happened. There were times too, because like, the one gripe I personally have, and it's not gripe, like, it was still awesome.
We take gripes.
We should work on what the on-screen options are. And you and I kind of talked about it a little bit too afterwards, right? Like, okay, we got one big screen, which like is awesome, really good view, crystal clear.
Movie theater screen, essentially.
It definitely went back and forth though between like which team it was showing, and like sometimes I wasn't quite sure if I was like, do I want this person to die or kill someone? But then as soon as the pit erupted, I'm like, all right, something good happened. Here we go. But some way to show and like almost like have a designated spot along the outer edges that aren't being utilized, and like have each player have their own screen. Cause I got to imagine there's people there that are like showing out because they've got, you know, their favorite player. Right.
Yeah.
And just being able to like have a way to kind of take it in how you want to, while still having the bigger guided experience up on the big screen for those like myself who, like, admittedly, I wouldn't know which guy to follow or what's going on necessarily. Like, I get the game, I understand the strategy, but like, it's going pretty freaking fast. Like, you gotta be bouncing around to really keep up. So having the isolated view was good for someone like me, but I can also see where like the diehards and the people going nuts down in the pit, they might have a different opinion and want to see a little something different.
Yeah, it's something that we take, you know, I appreciate the feedback. That's actually really important stuff. You know, it's all fun and games too, but that is technically a small gripe, but I do feel it as a fan of the game as well. Like, one thing we've grappled with, and I know the league grapples with, like, it's not really our decision how that gets broadcasted. We all have our ideas and we would love to be able to implement stuff, but it's, you know, how it goes up is not really our decision technically, though there are ways we can make it cooler. And yeah, I mean, to your point about like player cam statistics, like all those types of things is one thing, but we've also had to tread that line of like, to your point, the people in the pit that know exactly what's going on, they don't want to be coddled during, it's the same like when we watch like curling, right? Like we may know curling a little bit more than the next people, but when they go so in depth and they like are explaining the house and like, it's just like, every time it's like, yes, I get there are beginners tuning in. So you want to trend between empowering the people who are 1%ers and big time fans of the game while also welcoming in people like yourselves. And I think the best way honestly to do that is just live esports in general. You got to see the roar so you could understand the game. Dude. If you're watching that at home, that'd be impossible, right, bro? It'd be
for sure. But I got to throw in then, like, this is like totally off the cuff, might be pie in the sky, but like, if you guys had something where like everyone that's walking in, whether it's part of their ticket or you can scan a barcode or some shit, like having the player bios and having like their gun kits and their setups and explaining what they are and why they have them and shit, like just understanding like what's each person's role. Like, again, there's some people that don't give a shit, but there's some people that it like helps you just get a little bit more entrenched and like really understand like some of those finer aspects.
I'm a little sad you're saying this because this is a genius idea. And it's like something we kind of used to do. And honestly, now that you said that, it's like, first off, how did this never come up? Second off, I would have loved to get, because like that's something cool to leave with, like a little like program
even it's like a PDF file you get, like almost like
literally.
a program.
Like you could have it be web-based and it could be like way more interactive. It could be like a digital booklet of sorts, but it's just like kind of to understand like, hey, this is the person, this is their role, these are the maps they're good at, these are the maps that if we get, we're bummed out, like all that kind of shit. You gotta
stop.
It's like, no, I'm gonna go down the tunnel. It's going full nerd here because like now, like taking it to like a different game, but like like any team you support, any like Warhammer team that you like, you support diehard, like you get the handbook, right? Pokemon Red, Blue, you're getting the official guidebook. So it'd be cool, like when you're going to the event like this, you get that guidebook as well. But we're in 2023, so you scan that shit, pops up on your phone. Look at that.
This is just
Dillon, we're not even charging you for this networking, by the way.
World's problems, man. Let's see what else you guys got. What do you guys know like how to cure cancer? Can we just dive right into the other stuff? Like this is impressive.
Depends on what kind of cancer.
This is impressive. Man. I love it, guys. No, but seriously, that is something. I'll actually try to maybe forward you an old tweet I had, but we used to make those types of programs where it had things like the maps, the KDs, and we would share them actually for media specifically, so media could cover it better.
Okay.
But good example. That would have been a perfect thing to get at like a Twins game. No different than you'd get at like a RØKKR match. It's a cool idea, really cool idea.
And I don't even remember if we asked this the first go around because like that was a pretty extensive interview and we went so many directions, but. Are there like fancy stats and analytics beyond like obviously like everyone, even people who aren't into Call of Duty know what a KD is. They have to at this point. It's not Kevin Durant. And like, are there like deeper analytics though? Like when you guys are looking at your team versus another team, when you're looking at guys to potentially pick up, like are there like deeper analytics that you look at? And if so, like what are some examples?
Well, and is it position specific? Because obviously there's some games where like if you have guys who are like the ones who run into maybe be the sacrificial lambs and in pistol rounds and things like that, crush it. Obviously their analytics are going to be a little bit different than your fucking guys who perimeter players, snipers, whatever the roles are, right?
Yeah, you nailed it. There are loose positions, AR and SMG, so assault rifle and small machine gun or submachine gun, whichever you prefer. Typically submachine gun is the typical way you terminology or terminate that. And then there is a sniper, usually in a search and destroy round, which is the second map or the fifth map if he goes to 5 rounds. That point though, so in those statistic realms, definitely. You can see, we might have even talked about this live with you guys. But the biggest thing that's cool about esports is that it's already played on something that's computing. So the statistics are in depth, they're specific, not necessarily Moneyball type vibes, but there are things like that where, so-and-so player is technically getting around this every single time they play on this map and with these teammates, especially the style of teammate. So it's pretty extensive, to answer your guys' question, but it also comes down a lot to team play and like how the team operates together because you can, and teams have had the best player probably in the league, if not the world. And they don't win champs just because they have the best players. So it is a lot of that, team-based items. Call of Duty was 5v5 for a very brief time, and that actually got a little weird. Because Call of Duty is a little faster pace. It's built for 4v4. There is an IGL type role. Isha, you would understand that side too with the CS. CS being 5v5 with an IGL, blah blah blah. In-game leader is what that stands for. But with Call of Duty, it's a little more off the cuff. There are plays that get run, like all those types of things, though, that are pretty cool that would apply to traditional sports too.
So I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, because in the game, there are a list of these are all the stats that are available in the game. There's no one in hockey right now coming up with that new analytical way of measuring X, Y, and Z. It's just these are all the stats. We have them there. We look at them because in the game they're already recorded real time because in play. There's not people creating crazier stats every year sort of thing, complicating, or like you said, Moneyball style, telling you something you already didn't know.
Yeah, it's actually, the way to answer it is kind of yes and kind of no, because Call of Duty League is not ESPN based. It doesn't have people that is, their entire job.
That's a positive, by the way.
Yeah, honestly,
it is. ESPN.
Right. True. That we won't even get into how late was your Sunday night hockey viewing? It's a whole other thing. But no, the point being is that the community builds a lot of these stats out. So yes, there are versatile, new creative stats that are theoretical, that put teammates together that may not be together and test it. But short answer is yes, there are those types of people, but no, there's not a Nielsen that's tracking these big long lists. It's a lot of community based stuff.
So comparing the live event to what most of the time I imagine is largely virtual, do you see, whether it's within your team or other teams, are there players who are impacted by that positively or negatively? Are there some that rise to the occasion because they go off of the vibes of the crowd, and are there others that are fuck, I just want to go in my mom's basement, lock myself in, and just go to town?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and just to quickly add to that, what are some of the soundproofing headphones you guys are using versus maybe some people at majors use the whole bubble boxes? Who I guess to jump on it rises to the occasion in those events, and who does that hinder a little bit?
Yeah, it's absolutely a reality in both worlds, and there was a time during COVID era Call of Duty where there was kind of the joke of the, I don't know what you'd want to call it, the bubble factor, where they're kind of quote unquote onliners, which is kind of a joke you'll hear in esports specifically, but also Call of Duty. The way that I've heard it, and so what typically happens is players wear earbuds, which is the sound, and then they wear noise proofing, something like this over those earbuds. And what I've heard, I've never experienced it myself. I'm not a pro Call of Duty player, though. That'd be sick. Is that you feel the crowd more than you hear anything. You feel the rumble, you feel the shake, you feel the energy. There are issues with it, though, from a live audience viewing perspective. For example, during Search and Destroy, when you're defusing the bomb, you can yell out loudly and tell them they're defusing the bomb. You kind of have to loosely imply to your audience that's not acceptable, and it is hard to combat sometimes if the whole crowd's into it, but it is something that kind of arises in the sense of where are we blurring the lines between what a fan can do or even what coaches, could technically do. So it's hard to talk about how that, changes, but there are players that rise to the occasion. And I think every player in the Call of Duty League would say that they'd prefer to play in front of an audience. Some may not like the spotlight, but I have to imagine if you're a professional athlete, you'd, prefer to be in front of people cheering, chanting, booing, and all that stuff too.
So, if hockey fans can yell shoot, why can't Call of Duty fans yell defuse?
Yeah, it's it's the competitive integrity behind the sport that'll be hard to navigate. I heard that stuff about Aaron Judge where they were okay, if he is looking at someone and he is getting pitch calls, why is that cheating now? Are we saying, the Houston stuff where they're banging trash cans, that was cheating? It's just hard to navigate the reality of playing in front of a live audience. I don't know I'm with you. There's a lot of gray area.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're
Not my
taking
world.
you're taking a virtual online game and putting it in front of a live audience. Like, it's just not going to be the same.
Right.
Like, whether you want to label it as perfect or imperfect or whatever, it's just not going to be the same. Like, it's just a different experience. So
Totally.
and I think that's what's so cool about majors as well, because it's like it's like the event that you guys put on times 10 with just like the people, right? And like, it's just on a whole nother level. So like, talk about rising to the occasion. You can't really use that as an excuse, because it's like, this is the big leagues. Once you get out of, your comfort room and setup and everything, this is where you compete, out of the virtual into, the quote unquote reality. And that's what I think is so cool. And again, like, I've only seen majors like on TV, again, huge Counter-Strike guy myself. Been to like LAN tournaments, but I've never been to something as intimate and as like fun as the RØKKR event that we attended. So I want to say thanks again for inviting us. Before we segue into a little bit of what you guys got going here at the end of the season. Oh, Hoppy, you got one more thing on this. I was going to transition to what we're drinking too, by the way.
Well, and we can talk about that if you want, but I just want to know, like, in comparison to sports, because that's really all I'm going to keep doing here. But like, do you have a bench? Like, I know you have more players on the team, but for one competition, are you set to the 4 guys that raise their hand to start? Or like, can you rotate them from like one match to the next? If someone gets, carpal tunnel, can someone else jump in? Like, what happens?
Yeah, it's a real thing, and it has happened, and it's a bizarre situation. It's almost like the, third goalie off the bench on the away team kind of thing, where it's like some rando sometimes, but the coach can step in. Yeah, literally. So it is
that's Dillon's job.
Yeah, right. Like, pop in. The coaches can step in. We do have a sub at this point. And ironically, we just went through a roster change today. So Afro went out, Marcus went out for Dillon attach. So that was big RØKKR news ahead of the major. But well,
hang on, Dillon. We got to stop there. Good news or bad news? Like, break it down.
Yeah. I mean, as
ahead of the end of the season too, this is huge.
Right. And I cannot speak on any coaching stuff. I do not know anything behind the scenes, but it is exciting. I think, I love Marcus. I love Afro. He's a beast on the map and off the map. He's a super nice guy. Dillon is a superstar. He's kind of like one of the godfathers of Call of Duty. So it's a very interesting dynamic, but they're both different players too. So one's an SMG, one's an AR. So what's interesting is that I don't know, again, the specifics, but someone will be moving around. I'm assuming Dillon will be the AR since he's naturally an AR and an all-timer. But yeah, little drama in the old RØKKR world and specifically the Call of Duty world. But again, to your point though, that stuff comes up, man. It can happen live. It can happen after a random map. And people, we have a sub, we have a coach, 2 coaches. And I don't know who like 4th, 5th man up is, but there's a whole chain of command if something were to happen.
So explain the 2 coaches. Like, we got head coach and assistant coach in hockey, and like some take special teams, some take offense, some take defense. Like, what's the purpose and like use of each coach?
Yeah, it's actually a really, again, I always say like a fair question, but that's a very fair question because it's like something that I assume is pretty nonchalant and is something that needs to be explained. But the head coach and the assistant coach, or in this case, Looney, Dan, and Brian, Coach Saint, they almost are like macro and micro coaches. So the micro being like game, day-to-day practice energy type stuff, like how are their scrims going, and then is on stage with them and can communicate with them during timeouts and after maps. That's Coach Dan, more analytical, that type of thing. Then Coach Brian, Coach Saint, is a little more macro. He's more like overall picture, team chemistry, map breakdowns, things like that. So there are 2 different ways. A lot of teams have just one coach and an analyst. Some teams have just one coach. Some teams have 3 coaches. It kind of depends on what dynamic you're looking to build. But that's sort of how we broke it down and how we've, seen the competitive success we've seen in specific instances from those types of things.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. This is my last question, Isha, and then you can take over the beer talk. But how does compensation work for the players? Like, is everyone playing for the same salary, or is it the better players get paid more? Is there a salary cap?
And does it change with every game? Because again, I'm literally operating from like, I've followed only one game my whole life in the pro esports scene, and like in that sense, like it's Wild West with contracts. Like there's a base pay and then there's like a max contract, and it was 3-year deals. But that was again only in Counter-Strike.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's pretty much in line with like all of esports. I'll say a lot of teams, and again, this isn't even speaking on version 1 or RØKKR. This is just broadly my knowledge of it, since I don't have the specific knowledge of our operations. But it's typically a 1-and-1, they're called, right? Which would be like almost like an Iowa Wild and a pro deal. Like you can go up to the pros or go back down to what we call challengers or AHL, USHL, whatever.
2-way deal.
Yeah, so you can go up and down. Or more prominently are just like the per year contracts. There's not been a 10-year, $100 million signing yet. There probably will be at some point. But the difference to your point of comparing it to traditional sports is that like, for example, Dillon, let's use him because Attach, I keep referencing him. He came off the starting roster, which is crazy in COD sense, right? Like that's like, benching the quarterback or something. It's a prominent player, your superstar. It's making some sort of point. The community is going to react to it, that type of thing. Dillon doesn't just like go sit on a bench though. Like he's a content creator. He does podcasts. He's a full-on, personality and superstar in, again, the esports sense for sure. And also the Call of Duty sense. So you're kind of dealing with the level skill of the player, the prominence of their personality, their social presence. Dillon has a few million followers, like insane type of numbers if you think about it in terms of like social presence. Mm-hmm. And then yes, these players can go up and down based on skill. It's kind of like it's even more intense than the UFC if you think about it, because these players can like come and go. There's not a lot of scumps that hang out for 10 years, claysters, formals that go between games, things like that. So can be varied across the board, but it's an interesting aspect of the game for sure, especially when it comes to esports.
Yeah,
Dillon,
Isha, that is not a transition into UFC.
No. I was gonna say, Dillon,
like
do you know? No, that's not what I was researching on the fly. Do you know how much Simple made last year with Navi? Just guess. Now, mind you, he's one of the best Counter-Strike players of all time and currently 25.
And does it
years
say?
Old.
Is it just his contract, or is it saying everything?
This was contracts and just streaming sponsors. So
man, I mean, I would guess like. I'm probably gonna be low, and I'll say like mid to high 6 figures, but it's got to be in the millions with him.
Oh yeah, 16 million.
Yeah, dude, like that's insane. Like that's on the far end to your point. But yeah, most of these players are 6 figures. Lots in the millions. So yeah, that's where
I do know. Like, I don't want to say like mid tier, like in disrespect, but like a top player who's always active, who's not like going down to the quote unquote AHL or going back to streaming while staying on the roster. Yep. In like 2017, like an entry deal for any Counter-Strike team, Navi, Cloud9, was like $6 million per year on 3 years, on a 3-year deal sort of thing. But you had a trade clause, right? So you could be moved like all the time, but you're not physically moving unless you're moving in with like a team's, house or city or just facilities like you guys also offer the RØKKR group. So
yeah, super accurate. It's crazy. And I did just put it together too. I love this shirt, man. I didn't even peep you got the RØKKR gear on. That's looking
look at this guy. Look at this guy.
That's super sharp. I love that.
It looks beautiful.
I gotta get some shorts for the summer here, as it's already getting super hot.
Are there agents? Are there agents for these players? Oh my God.
We prefer to work with players that have agents, and if they don't have an agent, we'll help them find one. That's something that, again, those aren't my words directly, but that is something that I've heard said and has been said in press that Brett is very adamant about. He's really proud to work with people that have agents. It's just to protect them. We want players being protected. That's the whole key.
I have a new career path.
I was just gonna say, Hoppy is about to send in his 2 weeks.
Hell yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break before we get into more RØKKR talk and what you guys have coming up for the end of the season, off season, and just some more general gaming talk. Boys, I already cracked my beer here, but I want to know, Dillon, I see you've been sipping on something. What are we drinking here as we do a quick Hoppy hour break?
Yeah, I might have mentioned it last time. I'm actually I love my sour beers, but this time I went with a whiskey. This is my filibuster, and I got it in my wild cocktail glass, my whiskey
nice
glass. So sad and happy at the same time, but yeah, a little whiskey is usually like if I'm chilling in the evening or after a workout, man, like throw throw a big old 3-finger, maybe 4-finger pour down and have a little whiskey. But yeah, a little filibuster for me tonight.
Is that the go-to, or like what's your typical whiskey sipper?
Honestly, anything. My fiance's dad, I might have mentioned this last time, so it's probably, who cares? But real quick story about it is that he really likes scotches. I'm not a huge scotch guy. I really like American whiskeys or bourbons, ryes, that type of thing. So for the first like few years we were dating, not me and my fiance's dad, but me and my fiance, when we were dating, he would get me big time scotches. And I don't mind them, but I would just kind of pile them up. He's started to get me bourbon. So now I'm like backed up. I got tons of different bourbons and ryes and whiskeys to try. So I just kind of go through them. I had heard of filibuster before, but like I got a Lefroy sitting out there. I've got a Macallan. We got a few just chilling out there right now. So
very nice. Very nice. You dabble in Japanese whiskey much?
We talked about this last time. I don't, but I've had it a bunch of times. I went to that.
So you haven't had it since? What the hell? I thought we gave you homework.
No, the speakeasy. I went there once and I didn't even get. Went there once since we had talked and I didn't even get the Japanese whiskey that time, which has really good Japanese whiskeys.
Okay, well, the next time we hang out, the Japanese whiskey.
Hold me to it.
The Centauri is on us for being so kind and getting us into that.
Event, so we can let him have the good stuff. Jesus.
Hold me to it. I like trying everything. Let's keep ripping up.
Sorry, I forgot. In Canada, Centauri is the good stuff. In the States, it's peasant price.
Fair.
Hoppy, what are you sipping on?
We just got the RØKKR special. We got Northland vodka with some Fresca.
Oh, timeless.
Very nice.
Timeless.
I went full back channel here today. I got a back channel beer, the last Ursula New England IPA. I mean, beautiful can, unbelievable beer. I got the back channel beer bowl here. That's our hitting the beer bowls here today. And I mean, funny enough, it's on the back channel coaster. So I mean, we're going back channel heavy here. Despite having the Waconia sign, we're going full back channel here. So cheers, guys. Dillon, have you ever had the beer bowl experience? Oh my God.
I was watching it. I was admiring it. I was also skeptical of it. Walk me through it. Is it a
back channel?
Is there efficiency to it?
Back channel. They got the Green Party THC seltzer. They love hitting their bowls, but the beer bowls are the best. Actually, but the beer bowls are the best type of bowls to hit, in my opinion. And it's such a fun and it's the coolest beer gimmick I've ever seen. Like, it's so you don't have an issue pouring at all. Like you're never over fizzing at all because there's enough air there that like even you don't need to be a fancy pourer. You get like the whiff of the beer, the beautiful smells, the aroma before it hits your lips. It's just such an awesome, though sometimes messy beer drinking experience. Shout out to Back Channel Brewing. They hooked me up with one of these bowls and I had to take it away from the main glass cabinet because my roommate keeps giving it to the cat as its fucking water bowl. So
it's like a branded bowl. It's like a back.
Oh yeah, here
bowl.
You can see that. Well, yeah, man.
Okay, don't spill it. I believe you. Okay. I mean, I love doing boat races, so maybe a bowl is the next.
Oh, dude, we'll hook you up with this.
Okay,
we'll hook you up with one of these for sure.
I got to give it a shot. You convinced me. I mean, that was a good sales pitch. You ran me through it all. I don't have any arguments.
You're way too nice, Dillon. You can be honest. Like
I was skeptical going into the show.
Right, that sounded really fucking stupid, but I'll still try it because beer's good.
I thought it was funny.
You saw me fade halfway through it. I kind of put my head down. I was like, okay, he's still going on about this bowl thing. But
he asked. You opened up the can of worms. I came around. You should know by now. I'm pretty verbose.
I came around, man. I was. You also did it mid conversation, and I was watching you. I'm like, this man is pouring an entire beer into a bowl. And I didn't ask about it, and then we got to it eventually. But I was really intrigued that entire time.
Oh, I love it. All right, let's get back into some RØKKR talk here. It's you told us this when we met up at the event that it's nearing the end of the regular season for you guys. What does that look like for your Call of Duty team, and does that extend also to your other sports as well, or do the seasons are they all a little different? Because I know you guys have Valorant and Rocket League as well. So what does it look like at the end of the season for your teams? And then after that, I guess we'll dive into what the offseason looks like. But I know you said you're gearing up for a major here. So what does all that look like here at the end of the season?
Yeah, it's actually kind of hectic. Esports is prominently like late fall to summer. Most esports are. I guess relative to at least the ones we're active in. But yeah, Call of Duty this year accelerated its timeline. Usually it starts up in like February, and that's so late. If you guys know the Call of Duty life cycle, the game comes out usually like in the fall, right?
Mhm.
November, October, in time for the holidays. And then we were starting like 2 months after that. So players would get early access, and then it'd be like a 3 month chill period before the season would start up. And like attention goes way down, experience or eyes on it go way down. So they accelerated the season up. We started it early this year in December, even, or it might have been January, but still a good like 6 weeks earlier than normal. And so this season ends in June for the first time ever. Usually it ends in August. Toronto Major will be in a few weekends here, end of the month, and then 2 week break, and Champs is in Vegas. So pretty stoked for Champs. Champs in Vegas will be electric. Our sweet RØKKR boys, Boston Breach, who you guys saw, and then Vegas Legion.
Boo.
Right. Yeah, we were booing the Breach big time. It's a 20-point separation between all of us, and you get 10 points if you win a match. So, and we play Vegas again. So kind of crazy in the sense of how qualifications will work. But there's a world where if we don't qualify, we don't go to champs, which would suck. But we get our dubs, we clean up, we go to work, we go to champs. We'll be a 7 or 8 seed, competing for that, couple milli in prize money for the players, and real exciting stuff. So this part of the season is really fun, really, really fun.
7 or 8 seed out of like how many that get in and how many total?
Yeah, there's 12 Call of Duty League teams that are franchised only. So 8 teams go to champs, and you're seeded once you qualify. And there's winners bracket and losers bracket. Winners, can lose twice. Losers lose and go home. So pretty intense. Pretty intense.
You described it as exciting though. Is it more intense than exciting, or is it like just a mix of all the emotions, as it's kind of like, you're excited to get to the playoffs, but you also have to like up the focus and the, everything.
Totally. I will say it's more exciting now. I've really tried to just enjoy esports as a whole. I'll put it that way. It used to be I remember when I gave up that part of me with the Wild in like the third time we lost to the Blackhawks in the first round, where I was like, I have to stop getting so emotionally invested in this before I hurt myself. My first few years at RØKKR and with version 1, I would have the ebbs and flows of wins and losses way too personally. And so I think the excitement factor is there, where I'm just stoked for our team, stoked for good Call of Duty, stoked for good esports competition. The intensity of like riding or dying with the team is subsided quite a bit. Plus, I do have to remind myself it's my job. It is a fun thing, but it's my job to definitely not get low with the team, but also not get too high. You know what I mean? So it's a balance factor. But that's okay. I don't mind doing it.
And maybe you'll tell me that it's different for like the championship tournament, but my biggest gripe with the sport, not with the RØKKR in particular, is, we'll call it the luck, the randomness factor. Like, if you're a hockey team, right, you're playing a 7-game series, you're going to have potentially 4 at home, 3 on the road. You know who your opponent is. You can scout, you can game plan. Where if you go into this, like, you could easily draw your worst maps every time, the game variant that your team's the worst at, and the other team just so happens to be the best at those. And it's just like, oh, tough shit, right? Like, do you see the sport growing to a place where it's like, yeah, maybe the tournaments throughout the year are randomized, but then you have kind of a set track, like, hey, here's the 5 things that happen. Here's the map and the game variant. Here's the map and the game variant for all 5, so that it's a little bit more something you can prep for and really hone in on for that big event.
Yeah, I love that take in general. Honestly, like, I think that's something that adds to the drama and adds to the formality and adds to like what you're looking for in in anything competitive. Honestly, it doesn't have to be Call of Duty. I will say that what's really cool about the way Call of Duty has come up and the way it's been built up is, back in the day, there used to be like 100+ teams. It was more like Rocket League style, where a lot of teams would compete and it would slowly funnel into a final. And yes, there'd be best of 5s and best of 7s and things like that. And it was like a longer, more major, like 3 to 4 day type thing. With 12 teams, it's hard to have significant parity, and it's hard to have significant parity when there's only 8 at champs. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So what you do see is a lot of, I will say Call of Duty is pretty top heavy. The best of the best, the phases, the optics, LA Thieves, those teams win and have won quite prominently over the years. It's not quite a pay to win type format like baseball might be, but there is a reality in that too, is, like I said earlier with rosters, once you have a really set roster, I mean, you could win numerous, championships, you could win money, you can win every little thing that's going on. So I would like stuff like that if there was more factored in through a season. Maybe there was more like non-sanctioned majors where you could get points, or it was still a bunch of money to provide, or to compete for. But I honestly, like, I don't know if it's the right or wrong answer, but I do like that a nobody can beat the somebody and move on just because they match up better. As Ninja would say, get
Sure.
good, kid. And just do better. Kill better than the other guys. Shoot heads better. So
Well, does it also? And again, I don't know how or like the semantics on this, but is it also to avoid cheating in some sense? And again, I don't know how you would in that particular game, but the randomizations of it, so there's not anything that's, I don't know, again, like preloaded or anything.
Rocket launcher behind the door in the third building or something. Like, what are you?
No, well, just knowing what map, because I know in certain games there's various like there's various ways you can like unlock walls and stuff in certain maps. And I was just wondering that, like, if that's one reason why it's randomized as well, so that teams aren't like prepared for the exact scenario. And maybe, again, 2020, we're living science fiction, boys. You tell me that you can't like preload cheats into a fucking Call of Duty, tournament if you know like what's coming up. Again, I may be talking out of my ass here, but is that also a reason why it's randomized? Is because like to avoid cheating at all costs in tournaments, especially when there's millions of dollars on the line?
Yeah, I mean, competitive integrity wise, like, sure. But there are coin flips and map vetoes and everything before a match anyway. So even if, like, I mean, devil's advocate, if we draw the breach or we draw phase or we draw ultra, like, we should be prepared for any of those guys anyways. Like, no matter how many days or how little days we have, they would all argue we should have film on them. We should be able to play them at the top level anyways. But yeah, as far as like that type of stuff goes, like their computer, like PCs are through the league. So everything is checked by the league. There are officials that are employed by the league. So like, I bet there's ways to do it, but that would be an insane thing to have happen. Any sort of cheating. If you guys want a fun little read, honestly, the match you were at, look up sound equalization from the breach. It was an interesting little dramatic vibe at the match where they thought that us having a home crowd, a live crowd, was an advantage. So they turned on it's called G8, a gentleman agreement or a gamer's agreement, that you don't have this sound equalization on that helps you hear footsteps better, and they played with it on. So a little interesting. Yep. And it caused a lot of controversy in the small Twitter world of Call of Duty League, timeline scrolling. But it again is something that comes up, and gentleman agreements that's all they are. If someone breaks a gentleman's agreement, it just means you're breaking a handshake. There's no laws behind it. There's no anything like that.
So are they cowards for breaking the gentleman's agreement, or are you idiots for not breaking it first?
Scroll the replies far enough, you'll see both.
No, I don't want to do that.
Where's the Reddit thread? I want to read this shit.
Right, and it always is like funny because everybody has their flair, so you can see like who's a fan of who, anyways. But I mean, I'm a fan of do whatever it takes to win. Like, and if it's, I don't think cheating is a fair way to put it, because I believe everyone was aware that they were going to use this setting. And I believe our guys had the option to either use it or not. So if they're going to be noble and not use it because it's a gentleman agreement, but they know the other team's using it, there's something to be said for that. But if they're to use it and, still lose because we lost that match, I don't know if we took the noble route or if we went the same route as them. But to their own, man. It's a weird, weird fence to navigate.
We could go off on that. But so you mentioned before, and I need you to explain this to me. What the hell is the coin flip and map vetoing look like?
Yeah, fair. Okay, so in the start of the match, you know that there's gonna be 5 maps for sure. The first match is always hard point. The first mode is always hard point. Second is search and destroy. Third is control. Fourth is hard point. Fifth is search and destroy again. So the reason that there are these map flips and like almost home team advantage or away team advantage is at the start of the match, one coach calls heads or tails. It's usually just switched. Doesn't really matter who calls it because winner picks first, losers pick second. And third, and then fourth, fifth for the first team. But when you pick you get to pick your map for the first round, and then the other team gets a veto. So they could veto your map, or they could veto which mode you pick, and so on. So like it's kind of like deferring to the second half on like a coin toss, let's say, for the football game. But what it does is like, let's say we're really good at control on some map, whatever, make up a map name, market at this case, hotel. Then you'd want to hopefully get that. But if you only get one veto, I should have mentioned that too. So like you can say we don't want to control market and we don't want another one. So you can be really in front of what the other team might do, and it hopefully makes you better in the sense of how you get to pick your side. It's pretty strategic and it's pretty coach heavy and analytic heavy, but it does play a factor. Again, it's all math at the end of the day, to be quite honest. How quickly can you convert and calculate these math problems? In this case, a video game, but it's pretty much math if you think about it.
Nice.
I love it. So you got the major coming up. You got the end of the season. What does your guys' off season look like after you've obviously won the majors, won the championship, and have walked away with that nice prize money? What does your guys' off season look like?
Yeah, it's again, this one will be interesting because it's gonna be a bit longer than normal. Usually champs ends in August.
Yeah.
And you have like 2 months of like fun old school throwback tournaments, which are actually really cool. They'll play MW2 or Blackout 4, they'll play old Black Ops 4 and they'll play old games. But that time frame they usually like go vacation, they get a breather, and they start right back to it. A lot of them stream. You have to be viable and you have to be like top of your game always. So a lot of these guys just stay strong and stick to it. For us, the off season is a lot of deliverables too. For my literal job, it's like getting players to deliver on brand deals, hit impression numbers, fun job stuff like that. But Rocket League goes until end of July, August, and Valorant goes until the fall. So we'll be busy with our other teams as well still. Just not as much Call of Duty since Call of Duty ends so early.
Interesting. So you can go.
No, go ahead.
So do you guys have like the typical off-season activities like other sports? Like, is there a draft? Like, how do you get new players into the league? Do you have like scouting? Are guys going out and trying to find the next talent somewhere off on Twitch? Is there like a free agency period when everyone comes off their contracts and you can just grab whoever you want?
Love that question. Never really get that one. And it is it's like one of my favorite parts about esports specifically and about Call of Duty is like off season is chaos. Like anything that happens is part of it being, well, first off, imagine the NFL had only 12 teams and imagine the NFL, those teams only had like 10 people. In this case, all the best Call of Duty players in the world are on 12 different teams and there are only 4 starting spots on each team. So it's an absolute shit show constantly. All drama. If a player, there are literal accounts out there that will look at like a player's story and see if he's in like a random city that might have another player. With those tight 1-and-1 deals, every year, half the league at least is like getting turned over in some way, shape, or form. A lot of teams resign, hopefully, especially if you have like a dream roster. But like last year, 2 years ago, we got rid of all 4 of our players. Last year, we got rid of 3 of ours and kept Dillon. Our first year, we got rid of all 5 of our players. Like it is like crazy. So you'll get these cool signings, you'll get these crazy trades, cool speculation. And to your point too, man, like when the new game comes out, all scouting, like you start watching Twitch streams to see who's really sneaky good. You see who's like, I don't know, climbing up the scoreboards, like who's playing too much Warzone and maybe not focusing. It's just a crazy mess that I just really love. It's literally, we sell it to partners. Like Roster Mania is like a time you can be a part-time sponsor for it. So
That's
it's a pretty
amazing.
big deal. Pretty cool.
That's really cool. So like, who's the Bob McKenzie for Call of Duty League?
That's
Like
awesome.
who is the central source of information? Like if I want to know league wide, like the chaos in the midst of that shit, like is there an insider, or do you basically have to like follow each team individually to get that info?
Was there like
no,
a publication? Like, is there a main media publication?
Definitely. Crone, CDL Intel, like these are real people with real lives that are right behind everything. They're the type of people that are following I don't even know how they do it, but they'll have it like in TweetDeck maybe or something. But if a bio changes, it'll get alerted. You know, like all the little things you see from pros, all the little like follows and unfollows. Like yeah, there's tons of good reporters, and there's kind of two sides. There's like your meme follows where they know everything and they're memeing it. And then there's like your journalistic follows who are really, really savvy and the inside, you know, the esports insiders, the Deserto, however you want to say it, DEX, Deserto, all these guys. Jake Lucky's a big one. He's a dude who just started another new venture. He's kind of the like live esports guy, but long story short is yes, there's tons of people that do this and cover this. Like the ins and outs of, you know, those types of things. We don't have a draft though. That would be something that would be sick someday. However, that's the problem with having 10 spots, you know, in the whole fucking league.
Totally. Oh
like
man,
that.
you definitely have to give us the heads up when like the whole frenzy mania fucking goes down. Like I'm actually really intrigued to see how that works. But
absolutely,
my last question, I think, you talk already like a couple times now. Just only 12 teams. There's only 4 starting spots. There's only 1 bench spot for each of those teams. Based on the talent out there, and I'm sure this is a little ambiguous, but like, how many teams would you need to really have the league that you envision where there's you're getting all that talent in, I guess?
That's an awesome question.
You're on fire with the questions.
These are really good. I'm not gonna lie. You guys have given me good input and feedback for the event, and have given me some questions that aren't like, "How did you get into esports?" Blah blah blah.
Not bad for a botched intro, eh, Dillon?
Game, Dillon.
Oh, dude, every time when you were a kid and when you're not. Like, yeah.
Who's your Mario Kart character?
Have you played Zelda yet? Yeah.
Why is Chrono Trigger the best game on Super Nintendo? Okay, sorry, that's a good question. That's a good question.
That Zelda's not even the main guy with the sword?
Yeah. That's a good one. The good mansplain there. So with that question, let's see. Reword it for me. Give it to me again in a sense of like how I'd look at it.
Sure. So given the just depth of talent in the sport as a whole, we've only got 12 teams, and that's a problem. And maybe the answer, I'll kind of give you 2 paths, I guess. Is there a way to expand rosters and make things more interesting that way? Or how many teams do you think need to be in the league to be at a point where we've kind of hit the balance of, hey, everyone that should be in the league is in the league?
Yeah. I think I'll answer it, I guess, 2 different ways. So I think that there's something to be said for the 28 to 32 generic NBA, NFL, I mean, MLS, and any of those places are getting up there with that. WNBA is getting up there. NHL, of course, obviously, like these team counts that hit, one, from a business side, market areas, which is really important and a very specific thing that I don't think people realize is talked about as much as it is. For example, Minnesota, we're trying to get like the Dakotas, right? Like we should be dabbling in getting Iowa fans, whereas like there's 2 LA teams. So LA teams have more to specifically access, but are in a smaller area and don't have as much access to like literal geography. So I think there's something to be said for like 30-ish teams. And I think that's viable considering how deep the challengers pool is, which is, again, this like amateur level Call of Duty side. What I find really cool about challengers is like, first off, it's super badass to follow along. It's sometimes more intense even than champs play because people are trying to get into the league, of course. You know, you get that whole aspect of it. But the other side of it too is that there will be legit pros. Like you could like an entire team. Let's say you like some guy in FaZe. They might be in challengers next year because there's not a spot in the league. Like there's some young gun that comes in, the guy that didn't really fit in or, you know, didn't really make it work where he was currently at gets dropped into the challengers league and they can compete. The barriers are significant though for expansion because we have 12 teams right now, and entry into Call of Duty League is very expensive. The initial price tag was $25 million for these teams. So, that was the initial franchise fee to like even get a team. I think that has changed slightly, especially with new projections and just the realities that we're facing. With things like NFL teams get money from having sick games 8 to 9 times a year in their own stadium. We did one event, and hope to break even on revenue and on ticketing with those. That's not built out the same, right? Like sponsorships are different. All these little things that are different are big barriers for teams to get into esports. So I would love to see 30 teams. I think we're a ways away from seeing 30 teams. However, there is a reality that like you can have a favorite challengers team and you can find all these players and watch really high level Call of Duty just about anytime you want. So it's a trade-off. I would love to see 36 geographical based teams. I'd love to see European teams, Canadian teams. We have one Canadian team currently. But
Fuck
like
them though. Fuck
the
them.
Toronto Ultra. We don't like Toronto, but it is true.
It's Canada's team.
No,
Yeah,
oh my God. Don't even start.
But we're a ways from that. Dude, I would fucking love that. I would love 30 pro Call of Duty teams, but someday.
The regional aspect speaks a lot to it though, because like, look, my roommate who he followed, what did he follow? Competitively, I think Dota for a bit, but then like he's the one who got me into Counter-Strike, and like he went all in on Liquid because they were the only relevant North American team, and he's like, he's one of those idiots who jumps on like the Canada team
totally
type of thing, even though they're North American. He's like, I have to support somebody, and so he went with like the North American team because even though they were out of California, he's like, it's not Finland, it's not Sweden, right? Like it's close to home, so it's I could only imagine like if BC had a team, or Vancouver had a team, then I'd maybe jump on that. But I have one last question in regards to just the game itself. Is it tough or annoying, do you think, from your perspective and from maybe you can speak on maybe behalf on some of the players' experience perspective, that the Call of Duty games now they're almost going the way of EA and Apple, dare I say, in that there's like pretty much a new version yearly, every couple of years, like just so much more often than there had been before, unlike Counter-Strike, which is releasing CS2 first huge update in 15, 16 years. How does that affect the playing field? Does that just cause for more turnover? Is it annoying? What are your thoughts on the game itself going the Apple/EA route versus staying true to like what it is for a long period of time, and actually giving generations of players and teams the time to master the game?
Yeah, I think it's honestly ironic because I think it factors into two kind of things that I've noticed, where when I love a Call of Duty, I am more engaged with the ecosystem of Call of Duty League. Like it's kind of reciprocal. And granted, again, like I said earlier, it is my job. So I know every little in and out that I can possible. I know maps, I know memes, I know, what is hot, what's new in the patch notes. Like I know all the little nuances of it. But what I think is really ironic is that sometimes we'll see a fan be a fan for like a heavy 12 months and then rotate out. And then like another game comes out that brings them back. And like, what I don't want to happen is what I think has kind of happened in Call of Duty, where the 2-year-ish life cycle of someone that gets into Call of Duty and then subsequently gets into Call of Duty League is sort of the reality. But what it is really hard to keep up with new games, new maps, new modes, new skins, new looks. Like it's exhausting, man. And when you're in your late 20s, into your 30s, like whatever it might be, it's harder and harder to keep up with. Whereas you can just look at a football field or a baseball field or a hockey rink and know what game is sort of being played there, whether it's somewhat different in an Olympic rink versus a regular NHL arena. It's you still understand hockey's being played. What can sometimes happen is, fuck man, they might add jetpacks again next year, right? Like you might have a flying Call of Duty, which completely changes the competitive nature of it.
Jetpacks in hockey would be electric.
Jetpacks in hockey would be like literally electric.
I was thinking NFL, and I was like, man, some of those tackles will be insane.
Well, what if they had like Olympics where you could take steroids? Like all these little things.
Please bring it back.
let's do it. Like,
So
where it changes the dynamic of it really.
No, but okay, well then that's huge then, because like you're going from like, you know, Halo 3 to Reach, where you did have the jetpacks. If a player is theoretically on, say, a 3-year deal and the game changes, like, are you stuck with that player if they can't perform? Like is the player annoyed because they're like, fuck, like I signed a deal in this position, now I have to literally change my game? Like, that seems so bonkers for me. And again, I'm looking at it through perspective of Counter-Strike. Dust 2, other than a little bit of a facelift, even in the second version that's coming out right now, hasn't really changed. Like you said, it, the ice rink is the same, the football field's the same. Even Counter-Strike in Counter-Strike 2 coming out in a few months here, like, it still hasn't changed Dust 2, other than, like, you know, the smokes are placed in a little bit different of a spot. You know, you might have to bank off, you know, this door versus this wall, give it a centimeter, you know, difference. That to me makes sense. And again, maybe I'm old school. I don't know. The game to change so drastically that it's not like, okay, you moved a box from, you know, the map. Like, for me, okay, that's a big change in itself. But you're telling me that you're adding fucking jetpacks? Like, it's a whole new game. So like, how does that even work if you're changing the game? Because that's like drastically changing like the rules of a hockey game in my mind.
Yeah, I agree in a certain capacity. What I think it took me a bit to learn, or at least figure out what I liked about it, was that it first off is impressive as hell that the top players can be at the top of each game. I find that fascinating in a way that people I don't think really understand, especially about Call of Duty, where meta can literally change. Metas can completely change. Like you said, there can be different movement. Also, people don't realize, but the games are made by 2 different developers each time, which is why like slide mechanics feel different. The uns feel different. Right.
I don't know how I feel about that, Dillon. Like, if anything, like I don't think I like that. I mean, I'm no pro player, but like I'm very much like keep it the same so you can master it, man.
Solution, Dillon. We're not getting to 30 teams, but we're going to expand the existing teams, because we're going to have a squad of 4 with 1 bench guy for each game, at least dating back 3 years.
That'd be sick.
And you can make it a bigger league-wide thing where like the fans essentially vote each year on like which game is kept and what's one that gets kicked to the curb, because we can only have so many in circulation.
I love these ideas. Literally clip these types of things. This is the
even
move.
past that. I mean, depending on the players, because some maybe will have preference to stay on older games or whatever, but that could almost be the fucking like Europe soccer relegation play.
Relegation. There you go. Like some relegation.
Like the Euro League.
To the new game, but if you're bad on the new game, you get relegated back to the previous. Ooh, that could be fun.
That would be sick.
And send people back to their original Call of Duty. Like, oh my god,
you gotta go back to your OG.
Imagine.
To be fair, I love those ideas, and I think I will say, you should like. I was sort of in your world of like Rocket League. Rocket League, I think I really like because it'll have a long-standing fan base, because you can leave the game, you can see it on a watch party, and you can understand what's going on. It's orange versus blue. It's a purple team versus a yellow team, and they're trying to score a goal. Plain and fucking simple. Call of Duty's, I think I like the nuance of it, which is what makes it different. Is it's highly competitive. It changes. You know, even Valorant and, you know, to your point, CS, like map changes. You know, R6 is a big one too. If you've ever heard of Siege, like those are maps or those are games that are really intricate in the fact that they're like an elevated shooter. You know, it's strategy
versus like one-on-one skill. Like you have to plan out like your strategy on the map versus like being the best, you know, one-on-one shooter, right?
Yeah, dying in a certain amount of time less than the other person, so you respawn quicker. So like I said, I think Call of Duty is its own animal, but I secretly kind of love it. I think it makes it really exciting year to year. It adds a whole new element. People retire, people come back. It's really cool.
It's definitely like way more unique and deep than I thought it was. And again, like I played Call of Duty on Xbox 360 when like Modern Warfare, you know, came out. So like, and then you know, and then honestly, like I didn't play a lot of video games, and the only one where I went like, and this is just me, I go 110% into something I like. When I found Counter-Strike and I realized I'm not that good at playing it and can't get the fuck out of silver, I was like, I'm just gonna watch every single major and learn, you know, everything about it that I could. So like I went all in. Like I know where to throw all the smokes on Dust 2. Can I do it? No, but you know, that's okay. I can smoke center.
You nailed it.
Are you and RØKKR keeping tabs on what's going on with CS2? Because I know the last time we talked, I was almost literally begging you guys to please get a CS2 team. Like I'll be your biggest fan. Obviously, Valorant, it's kind of the evolved version for a younger base. Visually, it's a little bit more like cartoony, comic booky. Obviously, you said Rocket League. Like Rocket League's never going to die. It's always going to have that die-hard base. Counter-Strike global offense was starting to die out again, and in perfect timing, Valve now is releasing Counter-Strike 2. From what I've seen from the pro players and YouTube creators playing, admittedly just Dust 2 on there because that was the only thing available, only map available. It looks awesome. It seems like all the pro players, all the content creators are very excited for this facelift and basically just fixing all the little things that in 15 years, everyone kind of piled up with the list of this is why we love the game. This is why we're still here, but this is what needs to be fixed. It seems like from what I've been seeing anyways, that Valve has cleaned everything up. With that being said, and now potentially it's reboom in popularity from the diehards like myself and now a newer generation, maybe those even coming from Valorant. Are you guys keeping tabs on that with the possibility of expanding into that realm maybe a year or two in once you have enough data on it? Or is it something that you're like, we're so in it with what we have right now, we'll cross that bridge maybe down the road if there's even an opportunity?
Yeah, it's I mean, again, without my opinions reflecting on the org, because it's first off not my place. Second, it's the way that I've had it communicated to me is like they're like our GM and our COO and those operations people are always watching these things. What I think is really cool, and the way I'll kind of put it back to you that I find awesome about my role and about what the industry we work in is that we can really like CS2, let's say, and maybe we look at fielding a team, but when you look at fielding a team, it's not just like, does the guy on the podcast like it? Of course you would, but can we sell partnerships on it?
Well, that's what I said with the reboom of it, of its popularity.
Podcast like it.
It's a beautiful thing, and like I think what you're putting it as is like you would be a fan of this. But you mentioned your buddy. We want to be like that for Rocket League and for Valorant with version 1. We want people to be proud that we're from Minnesota, but we want them to tune in and be like, I like that team. And then go to our Twitter and like our Twitter and like our clips and like our game day vibe.
And then like all the teams, not just the game sort of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So with CS, honestly, dude, I would love one. First off, like I'm totally joking about, does the random guy like it? That is a very important thing. Brett is the king of saying one fan at a time. But second off, selfishly, like what type of audience can we garner with it? What type of revenue can we get from it? Having 3 shooters, is that going to be viable to pitch, colleges on, high schools, when we talk about our programs that we run with the next generation? Like
you just replace Valorant. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
it's not going to work in middle school, so
right, and these are real talks that we have, and like my job isn't to have that talk.
No, for sure.
My job is to have the talk and be like, competitive shooters haven't been shown to prove uptick in violent individuals. Like talk about science or psychological whatever. Mm-hmm. But the cool side is we'd vet it out and like it. The other thing I was going to mention though is that what if there's a sick streamer out there? Like we can find a content creator to represent our brand that plays CS. And
see, that's cool. I didn't even realize you guys did that.
Totally love that side. And that's a really fun part about my job is like working with people like that is really fun because they have massive brands, massive viewership. A lot of our streamers streamed anywhere from 500, to 10,000 people like in a day. That's a huge brand compared to a lot of like daytime television and even like large or like bowl games and sporting events like that. These audiences are pretty sizable too. So 2 different angles, 2 different ways to think about it.
Put it this way. You answered my question.
Hey,
he answered my question. It's still dying and there's not enough viewership for Counter-Strike. That's okay. That's okay.
What's the game that I told you Joey plays, Isha? Because I'm just so out of it.
Oh,
the other shooter game.
I forget now.
Apex?
Yes, Apex Legends.
Yeah.
I got a buddy who's done some stuff with us in the podcast before, college roommate. He literally like studies glaciers out in Grand Teton National Park. But that kid is like, for not being a pro, he could be a fun guy for you to get in early and cheap. I'm going to be his agent. I'll represent him. I'll treat you good. I'll do you good. But just had to throw that out. There you go, Joey. Now
This
you
guy
can
sounds like my dude.
about it.
I like Glaciers and I like Apex, so we can.
Hey, all right. We
can
all right,
hit it
match
off,
made in
man.
heaven. I got,
Apex is another cool one though, because it's a BR. BRs are really tough to compete in. They're really badass. Optic, 100 Thieves, Dark Zero, like they all have teams in Apex. But Apex has really cool content creators too. So another good example of like a sick esport that you could get into.
nice. Well, so I have an idea here, and this is probably more for the
All you've
league,
had. It's
but
all you've had
you-
today.
You can steal this and like go to your higher ups, be like, "Yo, let's make this happen."
Okay.
So let's think hockey here for a second. What would you say besides the Stanley Cup playoffs is viewed as the marquee event for hockey?
Ooh. Man. Champs is pretty cool. Champs will see.
Well, no.
4,
I'm saying
5.
hockey specifically. Like,
Oh, sorry.
in
I think you said
hockey-
esports.
In
Okay, so-
hockey,
so
besides
re-ask
the
it?
playoffs. So all right, it's the Winter Classic.
Yep. Oh,
It's a
yeah.
standalone, unique event. It's still hockey, but we're changing things up a little bit. What if every year, let's call it, New Year's, just like hockey does, or maybe you want to make it a little bit different and hit a time where there's a lull in other sports, but you have something comparable where maybe it's Warzone that everyone competes in, or it's the zombies and you see who can make it the furthest on one go. And instead of having it be something where everyone gets together for one big event, you have every team in the league competing in this at the same time. But you, as RØKKR, set up somewhere like Palace Theater, and it's literally just your team playing there with all of your fans going nuts. And then you've got Boston in their spot doing their own thing. You got Toronto in their own spot. Everyone has their own marquee event, and it's still like interesting for you to sit there and watch your team do this, regardless of which variant it is. But it's just like something different to get a change up, get out of the minutia of this is what it is all the time, and probably attract a different crowd of people that maybe just enjoy those variants.
It's like a watch party at every location for the tournament sort of thing.
Totally.
That's cool.
Totally. Yeah. And the watch party thing is something, first off, we think everyone should do. We do it pretty prevalently with our stuff. Anything we do, we have a watch party for it. But
Nice.
I think so. World Series of Warzone is a thing. WSOW. It's a combo, which I kind of like, where it used to be one pro and one content creator, but I think it's 2 pros and 2 content creators now. And some teams can field that by themselves, like us. Like we could have 2 creators play with 2 of our players. What is sweet though, and again, is something that everyone watched, which is funny to your point, but they did a Warzone tournament with all the pros invited and all the creators. And what's cool about Warzone is that it's 150 players versus even 100 or even 60, which is Apex. 150 players, so 150 pros and content creators, and they all did. It's just 1v everyone. And Scump, who I've mentioned numerous times before, ended up winning it and like won the $100,000, or it might have even been $1 million. But like the COD Pro, who's kind of known for being the COD Pro, won the Warzone tournament, which like really stirred it up. Of like, oh, can Warzone pros be COD pros, and could COD pros be Warzone pros? So to your point, there are a lot of cool things like that in the industry that people are always, I think, thinking of. I really liked what you said earlier, but something that's really prevalent is like a lot of the Optic guys will do old school throwback tournaments. They'll play like Halo 2, or they'll do like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, like from 2010 when we all were playing freaking Call of Duty. So those tournaments do really well, and people love watching that shit. Rocket League has 1v1s too. Rocket League will just do like the best players in the world playing 1v1 versus each other rather than 3v3. So all sorts of cool stuff like that, and it does see an uptick in viewership if you care about it.
Well, okay, so see, now you got my head spinning a little bit here.
Pros of one sport play the other team's sport. Yeah, it's been kind of done.
No, that's all right. Let's say, are you a fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Of course.
So you've seen the episode The Gang Gets Invincible?
Yes, I've seen every episode a zillion times.
Okay. So playing very much off the movie Invincible, so why don't you guys have a day? Yeah, like pick a day in the off season, literally say, hey, whoever wants to sign up, we're limiting it to X amount, and people show up and literally try out for a chance at like not necessarily making the team, but like trying out to work their way up the ladder to like actually get involved and like be in some practices with you guys. And then, hey, if they're good, you found a diamond in the rough and it's cool. If not, you've still got way more fan engagement and people are super stoked to do this every summer.
Yeah, I don't think I bet when they did Invincible and like the gang, you know, when they go do it, I don't think they expected, you know, what's his name, Vince Papali, to like be fast enough or big enough to actually play. So that's part of why it's cool to do it. I would bet lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money. I won't say a number, but I mean, our pros have played with random people before. It's never been formalized in a sense or like put on anything, but like when they're not playing with each other or scrimming, they are streaming and they do play and they are the best of the best. So like the one example I'll give was like the Rocket League guys. If you're good at Rocket League and you're on a pro team, there is no world where someone walks in off the street and beats you. And I don't mean that like lightly. I think Rocket League's probably the most significant. Call of Duty, you could probably like get by maybe getting a kill luckily or timing something out. Valorant, probably too. No shot. People are too good at pointing and clicking. But Rocket League, no way. They played the guys on the power trip. I'm sure you maybe even remember that or heard that story, but they lost like 30-1 and 30-0. And the one goal was, you know, some sort of mistake that happened. So it is a very slim chance that anyone, no matter how good they are, is better than the top 150 players in the world.
Yeah, but that's what makes it great, though. It's funny. You literally get incredible content out of it. You build brand loyalty and you get fans excited. And like worst case scenario, you come across the 1 in a million guy who's like, oh yeah, I actually have always just slayed at this game. I just like thought video games were kids. So,
and there'd be the movie after you get the movie too. So,
and you get the movie rights. Gary V would produce the shit out of that.
Right. I love the idea.
You go to Gary V with Invincible for Call of Duty. He's going in on that instantly.
He's minting it right now.
We'll get.
Yeah, he's probably already got like 10 NFTs off of that.
It's
now.
NFT already.
You're welcome, Gary.
We'll bring the green men back. I actually know them from Vancouver, and we'll also get
dropping acid.
And we'll get McDonald's to. I actually know the actual 2 green men in Vancouver. They come on my past radio show before, and Ryan I've actually stayed in touch with, which is hilarious because one's a comedian and a writer now, and one works on local radio. So like they're very much still in the community in
How
Vancouver.
Have we not had them on the show?
Yeah,
we can get them on the show.
That's a very specific thing. I would think they'd.
Well, and we need McDonald's to sponsor that event, obviously.
It's a big M right in the middle. Big arches.
Well, it's owed back to that episode. That's like one of the greatest episodes.
That's fascinating. I don't know why, but I would have thought there was like an interchangeable. Like, I don't believe there's just 3 or 4 blue men group guys. Like, I think there's like 10 of them. You know, they kind of rotate in and out. So I'm a little surprised there's only 2 green men, and you know them. That's funny.
Well, do you know about?
There were only 2 in Vancouver. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Like the guy, they're all like up on the walls and like in the penalty box shit. And
yeah, so it's 2 guys that had season tickets right by the penalty box, and they just started wearing the green man suits to all the games and dancing next to it.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, I would have outsourced by then. I would have started paying, you know, getting people paid, paying me to be green men. I'd make it a whole thing.
Well, it's funny. The Canucks at first didn't like it at all. They were not stoked that these guys were coming and doing this. But then like towards the end, they finally did some like promotional stuff with them. They said like their biggest impressions on social was that like Carrie Underwood, they traveled to Nashville. Only one of them. It was one of their dads had season tickets, so they couldn't go to every single game. They only went to whatever game that
they got like the weekday pass. They can't.
No, it was like whatever the dad's gutter cleaning company like client couldn't show up to is the games that they went to, which is hilarious.
I love that.
And again, I hadn't watched Sunny at that time, so like when they told me the story, oh yeah, we watched this episode of Sunny. We went to a Seahawks game. And that like Seattle Seahawks game, that's actually my buddy dared me to do it. And that's kind of where the idea started. Then they're like, we did a Canucks games. We trolled Drew Doughty and the Kings, and it just blew up from there.
That's sick.
They officially retired the suits, I believe, in like 2015 or something like that. But you know, they grew up, and you know, it's
what's the official retiring of a jersey?
I think the Canucks YouTube channel did like a whole little press conference thing with them.
They raised a banner that was just solid green up into the rafters, Oh my God, that would be incredible.
See, if Aquilini's weren't the owners and they actually like cared about the
Someone
fans,
was
and
fun.
like
Yeah.
then they would probably do that.
That would be fucking hilarious.
Last thing here before we let you go, Dillon, because you've given us more than enough of your time. We absolutely love shooting the breeze with you, man. And I hope
Yeah,
you know,
me too.
like, you're welcome on this show anytime. We are on the hockey topic here, so final segment here on the show. I know the last time we talked, we were optimistic about the Minnesota Wild, and credit to them, they weathered the storm of Kaprizov's injury. If anything, they found some diamonds in the rough as far as scorers we never thought would score on the team. I love Ryan Reeves and some depth guys. They kept the train rolling, but alas, another first round exit. I mean, you mentioned earlier in this show here that you've kind of you haven't let your emotions get the better of you at the end of Wild seasons anymore, but does it still sting? And what are your thoughts on the season, the playoff exit, and where the Wild should go from here?
Yeah. It was I don't know, man. We kind of talked about it in person a little bit, like at the event where it felt weirdly expected this year. I don't know why. Like I feel like I had in the past have had like maybe misguided or false hope, but this year I remember someone asking me during Game 6, like, "Well, this is definitely going to Game 7," and I was like, "I just don't feel like it's gonna." Like, I just don't feel like it's gonna. And obviously, it didn't. So it was weird. I hate limping into the playoffs. Like, I'm a huge believer in hot teams. Again, hence the Florida vibes, like all that they're doing. While you were talking, I still have my bet going with my boys. I have Carolina left. Seattle just failed me. But there's, we have each person has a team left. So we kind of drafted playoff teams pretty well and made the bets fun. But I loved the Seattle thing. I'm really up in the air about this whole expansion stuff, where it's like, oh, let's make a new team and we get better and we can go to the playoffs second, third round every year, like super chill. But we'll see. I don't know. I hope next year the Wild are good, obviously. I just hate the problem with us is we'll never be really, really bad. We've never tanked and we've never like gone out. And that's so typical Minnesota, where we're going to be paying off 2 contracts for the next foreseeable future and not really doing much changing. So it's a tough time, I think, for the next few years to be a Wild fan. We're going to have some good runs. We're going to hit 100 points and we're going to get in the playoffs here and there. But I don't know. I hate not going too high or too low, obviously, but I feel like mediocrity is just kind of inevitable with these guys.
Well, do you think mediocrity? I know historically it's been inevitable, haha, Minnesota hockey, whatever. But like in all seriousness, do you think it's inevitable until those contracts are off the books and they can just go all in with Kaprizov's, years?
I think so. Unfortunately, I think so. I mean, there is a world where you find good amateur talent, but amateur talent doesn't take you very far in the playoffs. And, even players that you like really lean into and trust can disappear in a 7-game stretch too. So, no shots really at any of those guys. Like I think the Boldies and the Kaprizovs, like their role is to do sort of what they were doing. Like they were all facilitating and they were doing their thing, I think, on the ice, just not the scoring side as much as I think fans would have liked, of course. But there's 3 to 4 lines in hockey. Like it doesn't shouldn't all fall on them. So
exactly. They're only 2 players, and you look at these other playoff teams who are stacked. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, we were losing games. It sucked. It was just like we were just losing games. I mean, the ref thing was also something, but I don't think Dallas was getting great calls either every now and then. So I don't know, man. It sucks. It sucks. But like, think about right now. Like the second round just ended or somewhat ended. This would be so much more fun to play this much more hockey. This has been insane to imagine us making it to the second round and only just being out. It feels like the Wild have been out for 2 months. It's only been a month.
And the freaking crackheads going 7 games with Dallas, something the Wild couldn't even do. Like, are you kidding me?
But Dillon, you bring up a good point. That's the one thing that I love about Call of Duty. There's really no refs. There's really no, like, it's pretty black and white. You either get killed or you don't. There's no middle ground. You don't get an extra 2-minute penalty if someone's bleeding from the face. Like, nope, it's just you die or you don't die.
Yeah, don't get me started on my artificial intelligence officiating pedestal, because I think we are damn due for it. I can't believe baseball uses an umpire still. I can't believe some of the stuff I see in the NBA that people watch. Like, I can't believe people watch the NBA. It's so
Well,
it's such an
let's be honest. Like half the refs in the NBA, they're making their money through DraftKings.
yeah, like literally,
or BetMGM. Like let's be fucking honest here. Like
yeah, I hate when refs insert themselves, and even if it's like an inevitable thing, like a pass interference or something in football. But man, I hate that stuff. I hate when it comes down to calls because with something that has so much money on the line, the fact that there isn't more. Again, I think needs to be a ref for the like bouncer energy to like break stuff up and be a part of like what happens. But an offsides call, which again doesn't happen that often, where it's blatant and fucked up and they don't change it in hockey.
Unless it's in Colorado all the time, which is
like the goal the other night. How does that go through a billion people and Toronto still gets screwed? Like it's just crazy to see it on Twitter later and it just, and granted it looked like a goal to me, but who knows? So I don't know, man. I think there should just be math again. I'm a big math guy. But if that puck crosses the line, there shouldn't have to be an eyeball that tells you it does.
Well, what was the angle that you saw the puck cross the line at?
I don't know. I felt like it was a couple angles, but again, I don't think it should be up to my eyeball. It should be up to a puck that has a sensor in it that passes.
It's coming though, Dillon. Did they had the test?
Nope. That's a ways out, boys. No. So like totally by principle, you're 100% right. They have tried so many different ways to put trackers in pucks. And the players instantly know which puck has the tracker.
Same with football.
Same with baseball when they made the. I read so many articles and heard so many hits when they changed. And it was recently the MLB made changes to the balls, wasn't it? Like 2 years ago or something like that. And like, yeah, it was an adjustment period. But if it's gonna help shit like this, especially in the playoffs, like give suck it up. You get an adjustment period. Fucking Call of Duty, they get jetpacks in some years. Like, come on.
I think some sports could do with jetpacks. Like baseball would be watchable.
Let's just cut
Dude, can you imagine someone jacks a homer and you just go fucking.
God, if baseball had just anything else, maybe I could be a fan of that.
The one thing I've said
man.
that I've been saying this since I was in grade school. The one thing that I think could change baseball is kickball rules. You can throw the ball at them to get them out. I think that would change everything.
I think half the players would quit because they're soft little bitches.
And you're allowed to fight. And you're allowed to fight.
I don't want one of them pegging me with the ball, so no, I take it back.
True.
They should just allow them to fight, so they stop just like all like these like 60-year-old fucking managers stop like getting in front of people's faces like they're going to fight. It's like no, just allow it so that one of these guys can just punch their lights out and tell them to shut the fuck up and stop chirping. Like, oh my god. I forget who the Blue Jays manager was, like when Bautista and shit were on the team in like 2011 when they actually made like a little bit of a run. He seemed like such a cocky dick, and like I did not like the Blue Jays at all. So I'm just like, I just want one of these players to just sock that son of a bitch and tell him to shut up, man.
Gets all fired up about the Canadian teams. The Toronto.
Oh
team.
yes, I love it.
Yeah, Toronto's all it takes. So Dillon, how do we feel about your team, your Carolina Hurricanes for the remainder of the playoffs?
I honestly feel pretty good. Their showing against New Jersey was a pretty fun series. I'm like just
we got to stop on that though real quick. New Jersey. Dillon, did you see what the Carolina Hurricanes did to celebrate their series victory over the New Jersey Devils?
I don't think so.
These sly motherfuckers went to Cameo and found some of the biggest figures in New Jersey and got them to congratulate the Carolina Hurricanes on advancing. And it was fucking brilliant. I am so mad that I didn't come up with that before them. I'm absolutely going to abuse that in some ways moving forward. Like that's real fun.
I love that.
It was great. It was Johnny Sack from The Sopranos. They had the Situation from Jersey Shore. They had some Jets super fan.
And they said like congrats like to the Canes.
All were like, hey, Carolina, great work. We're happy for you. Congrats on the win, whatever. Like I'm sure all of them, it's just like they got paid, right?
Oh yeah.
They got like $50. That's crazy though. That's crazy.
I know, but it's incredible. You got to go find it. It is such a great video. So that alone, you got all the vibes working in your favor. But continue. I apologize.
The Canes have a great bit. Canes have always had a great bit. I feel like they changed something a few years ago that like the vibe changed. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I'm with you. I do have faith in them. I don't know how to put it, but they kind of feel like the only like real hockey team left, if you know what I'm saying. I don't know why it's Carolina. It's still not really a like I don't know, hockey state or city or anything, in my opinion. But
Okay, so that's what you mean, based on geography, not
yeah, it
based
just
on
feels like
talent.
a hockey team still. I don't know why. Like Florida doesn't, even though I love
May I
No,
remind
it's
you?
the ambiguity. It's the ambiguity of
Must be.
Carolina instead of being North Carolina or South Carolina or a city. It's like just because it's Carolina, like we're just like
state of mind.
it's Canada, right?
Right.
May I remind Dylan and the listeners here that the Florida Panthers took out the Boston Bruins. Arguably, not arguably, they were the best team in the National Hockey League this year. They took out arguably the second best team in the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maybe the Carolina Hurricanes are the third best team, but who's to say that Florida on this run can't take them out too if they just, you just slayed the dragon twice. Like, I don't know, man.
If they
might
let
have
see
money
those
on 'em.
beautiful reverse retros, maybe.
That could be the difference too. The look, the vibe, the feel. Yeah, I mean, if I wasn't betting on Carolina, like I think Florida is pretty sweet. Like I said, I like Bukestad too. I like me some Minnesota boys, and I don't know.
No, but for me,
Bukestad?
he got traded. He was on Edmonton.
Oh, rip! He just died. He
He's
just
been
left.
a
He
lot of
just left.
places since Florida.
That's true. This is super true.
But
Florida Hoppy, they just like you. Every year there's that team that just has that playoff vibes. You're like, they just can't be stopped. Like, regardless of what happened in the regular season, Florida's got that vibes right now.
they do, but I will insert here. Like they absolutely could beat Carolina. They've proven that like everyone should worry, but I do think Carolina is more equipped to handle their rat piece of shit players, which I say that in an endearing tone. Like,
Very endearing.
I love that
Matthew
they're rats.
Tkachuk.
I wish that I had those fucking rats on my team, but they are scumbag rat players. And I don't think that Carolina will get pushed around like the Toronto Maple Leafs. I
That
think that
ambiguity.
you got some big boys. Like, yeah, Tkachuk wants to get in Jordan Stahl's face. He's going to get laid the fuck down.
Yeah, well, we
Brent
forget
Burns is a mutant of a human. He will
Gouda-
keep them all alive.
Gudas is getting suspended in this series. Let's just say right now, like
Game two, he does something on the fly. Like,
oh, of course it's him. Out of all players who get that, like that playoff picture of that moment, and he's just screaming in the face of the Toronto goal.
So sick.
Like he's such a savage, dude. Like it's insane. Like oh my
those
goodness.
split jerseys that family members will do?
Yeah.
So we got the two Stalls against the one Stall. So it's Jordan Stahl, captain of the Carolina Hurricanes, against brothers Eric and Mark Stahl, noted scumbag losers who hate supporting people loving who they want to love.
They hate
We
the
can go
gays.
past that. But what if the parents came in with like a 2/3, 1/3 jersey split between the two? But even better, it's 2/3 Jordan Stahl because he's literally twice as good as the other two combined. So like the team that has one gets 2/3, and the team that
Based
has
off
two
of
of them
character.
gets 1/3.
Here, I'll raise it. Mark and Eric's have to be the pride jerseys.
Love it. There's like a little square.
Oh my god!
I love that.
A family pride jersey. Well,
Oh, we're just
I think we
prideful.
can imagine
We're just
that if
prideful
they're-
to have all the boys here on the ice. That's all.
if they're saying no, I gotta imagine Mama and Papa Stahl from the farm are probably of a similar mindset. So I don't know if that's gonna happen.
God, that would be
but I'm
hilarious.
intrigued.
Though
That would be brilliant.
that would be
Give them
hil-
out to
that
like
would
all the
be-
fans, just like
God,
sitting.
that would
They're like
be
all
incredible.
sitting on the chairs. That would be crazy.
Oh, that'd be incredible.
I
Oh
love
man,
it.
Dylan, as always, man, this is so much fun. Like, I just based off our conversation again here today. I know our first podcast, and again, reminder for those who haven't listened to our first hit with Dylan. Links in the description of this podcast, in the description of the video as well if you're watching on YouTube. And please go check it out because we basically came into that interview as like noobs. We really asked like the easy questions, the introduction questions into esports. I feel like we got into the weeds a little bit more on this episode upon going to that event and everything as well. But based off this conversation on esports in particular, like no, let alone the hockey stuff, which we could like talk about for hours. Like I have so many more questions, so I'm excited to bring you back on the podcast. Maybe after after your season, when things are prior
During the
or
frenzy,
after.
man. During the frenzy.
Well, sure.
Mania.
Well, I was just like during or after, whatever works better for you, because I know it's a frenzy. But let's definitely connect again this summer. As your other sports league seasons are rolling on, and after that, like I said, after or during the frenzy there. But again, remind everyone who they should be supporting, our listeners, where they can find RØKKR on social media, and where can they watch and support just beyond like the Twitter and Instagram follows. Like, break it all down. Where can everyone go to get this awesome gaming entertainment experience that RØKKR provides?
Absolutely. Yeah. So at version 1 GG on every social media account, the GG is a typical gaming term. So version 1 GG on everything. And then RØKKR is our Call of Duty team. Version 1 is our Valorant and our Rocket League team. So at RØKKR and at version 1. My name is Dillon Pomeroy, at Dillon Pomeroy on Twitter, or I do like LinkedIn, of course, too. But Twitter is my vibe. All over Twitter there. Always hit me there first. But hey, you never know where works best. And then, yeah, watch us on Twitch on almost every weekend, honestly. Call of Duty is going on for sure. And then there's usually Valorant or Rocket League going on as well. So can always find us on Twitch, Rocket League, and I guess all three are also streamed on YouTube. So you can stream them on YouTube if that's if that tickles your fancy instead. But most people are on Twitch. So but yeah, appreciate you guys having me on as always. Like you said, could talk shoot the breeze all freaking day, and really loved having you guys. I think a lot of people ended up having a blast, and it was really fun to have you guys there to experience it, which means a lot, specifically to me. So appreciate you guys big time.
No, thanks, buddy. Appreciate you as always. Signing off, I'm Isha Hoppy alongside Dillon Pomeroy and the State of Hoppy. This has been the Sota Pod presented by our friends at Better Edge, 7th Avenue Pizza, Northland Vodka, and Waggle Golf. We good, boys?
Always.
Gucci.
Don't fear, just drink some beer and stay wild.